What's going on, everybody? Halo Drama here, yet again with another commander deck that I own. In case you hear me guys clearing my throat or coughing a little, I'm getting over being sick. All that's left is the little dry cough at the end. Once that shakes, I'll be 100% better. But still need to get a video out, so showing you guys the deck that I have with Go-Shintai of Life's Origins. He's the commander of this deck. He, it, whatever you want to call it. Costs 3 and a green. It's a 3/4 legendary enchantment creature shrine. Has an ability that you can pay Woolberg, that's one of each color, and you can tap it and return target enchantment card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Also has an ability when Go-Shintai of Life's Origins or another non-token shrine enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 colorless shrine in enchantment creature token. I remember buying a booster box of Nuka Penna, I want to say I pulled this in. Or not Nuka Penna, Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. And pulled this, and pulled the other shrines that go with it, and I just happened to own the original shrines, the older shrines from back in the day and whatnot, so I thought it would be fun to put a deck together with this, and seeing as it has 5 colors in its identity, I can make this deck 5 colors. Excuse me. So let's go ahead and get into the deck. If anybody has watched any of my other videos, I greatly appreciate it. You guys know I don't put these cards in any particular order. I only categorize them between, Plainswalkers, creatures, enchantments, sorceries, instants, artifacts, non-basic lands. The basic lands I won't discuss because it's always just a vast array of basic lands, and of course there's some basic lands of each color in here. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into it. The first card I'm going to talk about is the only Plainswalker that is in this deck, and it is Calyx, Destiny's Hand, costs 2 and Celestia, that's green and white. Starts off with 4 loyalty, has a +1. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal an enchantment card from among them and put that card in your hand, put the rest at the bottom of your library. Good way of siphoning through your deck, just getting as many enchantments as you can, because this is definitely an enchantment-based deck. Has a -3. Exile target creature or enchantment you don't control until target enchantment you control leaves the battlefield. Basically like an Oblivion Ring type ability, where it exiles something until you get rid of Oblivion Ring. And there are multiple enchantments that actually do that. Oblivion Ring is just the first one that came to mind. Has a -7. Return all enchantment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. That's pretty cut and dry. Lose any of them, if I'm able to get this ultimate off, get them all back. Excuse me. Alright, now let's go into the creatures that are in this deck. And the first ones that we'll cover is go ahead and get the creature shrines out of the way. And the first one that's on the top of my stack here is Go-Shintai, or Shintai. I'm just going to say Go-Shintai, whatever. I am definitely known for butchering some of these names, but Go-Shintai of Shared Purpose costs 3 and a white. Is a 1/3 legendary enchantment creature shrine. Has vigilance at the beginning of your end step. You may pay 1. If you do, create a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token for each shrine you control. And needless to say, I own all the shrines that exist. If they ever come up with any more shrines, I will try to get them, and they will go in this deck, because I doubt I'll take this deck apart anytime soon, because I really like it. But this is a good one that, yeah, at your end step, even if this is the only shrine on the board, you're going to get at least 1. But more often than not, it's never the only shrine on the board. that, because like you saw with my commander's ability, if my commander's on the board and I put this on the board, I get an extra shrine token to go right along with it, so that's at least 3. But like I said, it always ends up being a lot more than that when I use this deck. And let's go into the next one, which is, well, that wasn't next, but it is in my hand, so I'll just go over it now since I accidentally clicked it. Go-Shintai of Boundless Vigor. 1/1 legendary enchantment creature shrine has trample. At the beginning of your end step, you may pay 1. When you do, put a +1/+1 counter on target shrine for each shrine you control. And like I said, needless to say, a lot of the times I have multiple shrines on the board, and my commander helps create more shrines for the more shrines that I have enter the battlefield, the more non-token shrines that I have that enter the battlefield. And like I said, it always ends up being a lot, and if I was to use this ability, I can either put it on this or I can put it on my commander, which I do more often than not. If I use this ability at all, which sometimes I don't, because sometimes I don't have to. And that's just depends on board state and, what you got going on, But let's go into the next one. This is the one I actually meant to click on. And it is Go-Shintai of Ancient Wars. Excuse me. Cost 2 and a red, is a 2/2 legendary enchantment creature shrine with first strike. At the beginning of your end step, you may pay 1. When you do, Go-Shintai of Ancient Wars deals X damage to target player or Plainswalker, where X is the number of shrines you control. I've never used this to kill a player. I've used it to hurt them. I have definitely used it to kill Plainswalkers before, though. I rarely ever attack with any of these shrines. The abilities of the shrines and the other creatures that I have in this deck, excuse me, generally do all the work for me. So, but yeah, this is definitely a good one for taking out Plainswalkers. Like I said, I've never personally killed a player with it, but I can see how it would be possible. And the next one is Go-Shintai of Hidden Cruelty. It is a 3/4. Cost 3 and a black. Cost 4. I'm tripping. It is a 2/2 legendary enchantment creature shrine. Has Death Touch. At the beginning of your end step, you may pay 1. When you do, destroy a target creature with toughness X or less, where X is the number of shrines you control. This helps out immensely, because like I said, I end up with a lot of shrines on the board. A lot. And I've played this game, or I've played this deck sometimes where I have enough shrines on the board that there's almost no creature that you can put on the board that I won't be able to destroy. Obviously, unless they're indestructible or they phase out or some shit like that. But yeah, I really like this one. And the next one is the last creature shrine, and that would be the blue one. And that is Go-Shintai of Lost Wisdom. Cost 1 in the blue, is a 0/4 with flying. Whoop-de-doo. At the beginning of your end step, you may pay 1. When you do, target player mills X cards, where X is the number of shrines I control. I've used this ability before. This is more in there just to have another shrine in the deck. Because like I said, I own every single shrine that exists, and they're all in this deck. We'll get to all of them. But I've used this before in a pinch. Just, somebody will do something to like manipulate the top of the library or scry, and I'll notice that they'll leave something on top or whatever that they might be looking to use, and I'm the person to burst that bubble because I'll purposely just make them mill it. Because they don't realize what's going on. If this is already on the board, or if I end up putting it on the battlefield after they do that, at the beginning of the set end step, if I have that one to pay it, I will pay it, just to mess up the fact that they pretty much set up the top of their library, and who likes when your opponent does that. Alright, now to get out of the creature shrines, but we we'll get to the rest of the shrines eventually. But right now we're just focusing on the creatures. And the next one that I have here, or the first non-shrine creature I should say, is Feyburrow Elder. Costs 1 and Celestia. Starts off as a 0/0, has Vigilance, but gets +1/+1 for each color amongst permanents you control, which basically means the most it can be is a 5/5 for, 1 for each color. Excuse me. But has a tap ability for each color amongst permanents you control, add 1 mana of that color. So again, at max, it can add Wooburg. It can add 1 of each color. So a nice little mana dork. I don't know if I'd call it a dork. This might be a mana master because I really like it. Like I said, it can tap for up to 5, 1 of each color, which can definitely help you with your mana fixing and things of that nature. So yeah, I like that. And next one that we have here is Sanctum Weaver. Costs 1 and a green, is a 0/2 enchantment creature dryad. Has a tap ability, has an activated ability, tap at X mana of any one color, where X is the number of shrines you control. It does suck that you can only add 1 color, but hey, I've had this thing tap for a lot of mana. A lot. And I think it pretty much speaks for itself, especially in an enchantment-based deck. Because even if it was the only one on the board, it can tap for a mana, but it never is. Whether I catch it early or late, it's never the only enchantment on the board, and this thing ends up tapping for a ton. Outside of the shrines that I have and my commander making shrine enchantment, shrine tokens, yeah, this thing can get pretty out of control. And yeah, really like it. Very helpful. What do we have here next? I'm sure I'm gonna butcher this name, but we'll see what happens. Excuse me. Eidolon of Blossoms is one of those two. Costs 2 and 2 green, is a 2/2 enchantment creature spirit, has Constellation, which means whenever the Eidolon of Blossoms or another enchantment enters the battlefield under my control, draw a card. Because of my commander, I end up drawing a ton of cards off of this thing if it's on the board. Obviously for itself, and when a shrine enters, that's an enchantment entry. I get to draw a card. If my commander's on the board, that non-token shrine entry creates an enchantment token shrine, so I get to draw another card. Because it doesn't say non-token, it just says when another enchantment enters. So yeah, end up drawing a lot of cards off of that. Next card, a card I've considered making making a commander deck with, but I never have. But it is in this deck, and I like it. It is Sisay Weatherlight Captain. Costs 2 and a white. Is a 2/2 legendary creature human soldier. Sisay Weatherlight Captain gets +1/+1 for each color amongst legendary permanents you control. So yet again, it's another one that can tap for, or she can get at least +5/+5. Because obviously there's all the colors of permanents and legendary permanents in this deck. And has another ability, you can pay Wooburg, 1 of each color, search your library for a legendary permanent card with converted mana cost less than Sisay's power, put that card on the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Needless to say, especially if I have all 5 all 5 colors on the board, I can pay Wooburg and go in my library and get something with converted mana cost 7 or less, a legendary permanent I should say, what mana cost 7 or less, and put it on the battlefield. I have definitely used that ability before, and it's amazing. You've already seen some of the legendary permanents that I have, but you haven't seen even half of them, and there are quite a few. But yeah, I like Sisay. help you fill up the board. Next one I have here is Weaver of Harmony. Costs 1 and a green, is a 2/2 enchantment creature snake druid. Other enchantment creatures get +1/+1. That's handy in and of itself. But I can also pay green and tap it. Copy target activated or triggered ability you control from an enchantment source. You may choose new targets for the copy. And this is perfect for this deck because obviously the creature shrines that I've already showed you have activated abilities that you can pay at the end step. And with this you can copy those abilities. And if anybody remembers the original shrines, which don't get me wrong, we will get to here soon. Oh, that's pretty cool. You will know that those have upkeep triggers, and there are some shrines. There was a set of shrines that came on the core set that have pre-combat main phase triggers, but we'll also get to those. And in any event, like I said, the creature shrines are activated, the other shrines are triggered, and this can help you copy their abilities, whichever particular shrine you may be using at that time. So yeah, this was definitely an auto include for me in this deck. And the next one that we have here is we have Herald of the Pantheon. Costs 1 and a green. Is a 2/2 Centaur Shaman. Says enchantment spells I cast cost 1 less to cast. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you gain 1 life. Needless to say, I'm casting an absolute shit ton of enchantments in this deck, so both of those abilities are very valuable. It's more for the costing 1 less, but who's going to argue with also gaining 1 life every time you cast one? So, yep, that's a nice one for this deck. The next one I have here. This is actually a common, but goes very well in this deck. It is Starnheim Courser. It costs 2 and a white, is a 2/2 Pegasus, has flying, artifact, and enchantment spells I cast cost 1 less to cast. Pretty cut and dry. Makes my enchantments cost less. Well, it makes my artifacts cost less too, and there are a few artifacts in this deck. Seeing it's in this 5-color deck, I felt it was pretty necessary for the particular artifacts that I have, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But yep, makes them cost 1 less. Works for me. And the next one we have here is Jukai Naturalist. Cost Celestia, just green and white. Is a 2/2 enchantment creature human monk. Has lifelink. Enchantment spells I cast cost 1 less to cast. Yeah, just another way to make my enchantments cost less. And it's very cheap, so yeah, I like that. Let's see, and the next one that I have here is Starfield Mystic. Costs 1 and a white, is a 2/2 human cleric. Enchantment spells I cast cost 1 less to cast. Whenever an enchantment I control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on Starfield Mystic. Again, yeah, this is more in here just so my enchantment spells can cost 1 less. Granted, if this guy gets big, no homo, from my enchantments going to the graveyard and whatnot, then so be it. He just gets big from that, but he's mostly in here just so my enchantment spells can cost 1 less. And the next one I have in here, right there, it's a Johnny's Chosen. Costs 2 and 2 white, is a 3/3 cat soldier. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, create a 2/2 white cat creature token. If that enchantment is an aura, you may attach it to the token. I'm all pretty positive. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. Don't get me wrong, I got the stack right there and we're going to go through it, but pretty sure I don't have any auras in this deck. It's more just standalone enchantments that do do stuff. But needless to say, there's going to be a lot of enchantments entering the battlefield in this game, and it doesn't say non-token or anything. So even when I get those shrine tokens from my commander, their enchantments, they enter, I get a 2/2 cat. Yeah, I end up with if this is on the board, I end up with a lot of 2/2 tokens, which are there to fight the good fight and chump block any kind of stupid shit that may or may not come after me. But yeah, that's a good one. And let's see, the next one that I have here is Doomwake Giant, which has come insanely in handy in this deck, and people do not like it, but it is what it is. Costs 4 and a black, is a 4/6 enchantment creature giant. Has Constellation, which means whenever the Doomwake Giant or another enchantment enters the battlefield under my control, creatures my opponents control get -1/-1 until end of turn. I've had this thing clear the board before, multiple times. Put it in here just for that very reason, that this Constellation ability is insane on this thing. Yeah, I think that's pretty cut and dry. Yeah, that's what he's in there for, to help keep the board clear. And he does that, and he does a very, very good job at it. Excuse me. Next card I have in here is a pretty old one. It's from 5th Dawn. And it is the Bringer of the Black Dawn. Costs 7 and 2 black, is a 5/5 Bringer. That's the creature type. But you may pay one of each color rather than pay the Bringer's mana cost. So you can bring this thing out for 5, which is very easy to do. Has Trample. I don't really care about that because it's not really in the deck to attack. It will if it has to, or if it's able to, but it's in here for the second of the land, which states that at the beginning of your upkeep, you may pay 2 life. If you do, search your library for a card, then shuffle your library and put that card on top of it. It's pretty much a tutor on a stick every turn. Just have to pay 2 life. Ends up on top of your library, but I have multiple ways in here that either when an enchantment enters or when I cast an enchantment or whatever to draw a card. So that won't be hard to accomplish at all. And yeah, that is why that's in there. It can just tutor up all the stuff that I need. Let's see, and the next one is Speak of the Devil. One of the type of cards I just spoke of, which is Mesa Enchantress. Costs 1 and 2 white, is a 0/2 human druid. Whenever I cast an enchantment spell, I may draw a card. There you go. Perfect example of what I was just talking about. If she's on the board and I use the Bringer's ability and then I end up casting an enchantment, I get to draw the card that I just tutored up to the top of my library. That's what they're in there for, you know what I mean? And okay, next I have Hannah, Ship's Navigator. Costs 1 and Azorius, that's white and blue, is a 1/2 legendary creature human artificer. You can pay 1 and Azorius and tap her. Giggity. Return target artifact or enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand. Just a way to get your. It's more in here to get my enchantments back, but if somebody happens to destroy an artifact that I want back, I'm able to get it back with this, or at least to my hand. But hey, it's better than nothing. So yep, that's why that's in this deck. And then this card, which I think would. Oh, why are my cats on? Oh, sorry. I think this card would make an interesting commander too, especially for as cheap as its mana cost is. But in this deck, it's in the 99. That's a pretty cool version. That's not the one I have, but that's pretty slick looking. Oh, the picture moves over and everything. Oh, different facial expression and everything. Oh, that's pretty cool. But anyway, Sithis, Harvest Hand. Costs Celestia, green and white, is a 1/2 legendary enchantment creature Nympho. That's just how I'm going to perceive that, because I can. whenever I cast an enchantment spell, I gain 1 life and I draw a card. Like I said, this could be an enchantment. A commander card for a deck like this itself. But I think for what I'm going for with the commander I have, this is much better than the 99. Awesome card, gain life, draw cards. Just as simple as that. And cheap mana cost at that, so you can mess around and get this out second turn and start having a ball with her. Let's see. Oops. The next one I have is... Come on, there you go. Satyr Enchanter. Costs 1, and Celestia is a 2/2 Satyr Druid. Whenever I cast an enchantment spell, draw a card. Like I said, I told you guys, there's a lot of these effects in here that lets me draw a ton of cards based on what I'm doing with my enchantments. So, yep, that's why that's in here. Pretty cut and dry. Then I have Gen. That's just how I'm gonna pronounce Gen. Arcanum Weaver. Costs Mardu, red, white, and black. Is a 2/3 legendary creature, human wizard. You can pay Mardu and tap it, sacrifice an enchantment, return target enchantment card from my graveyard to the battlefield. So basically it's just taking 1 to get 1. And depending on what it is that's in my graveyard that I might want back, it's nothing for me to sacrifice one of those shrine tokens that my commander's making. Sack one of those irrelevant, well, they're not irrelevant because they do go along with the shrines, but depending on how many I have out there, I can sacrifice one of those to get a better enchantment back out of the graveyard. Not to mention, especially if it's one of my shrines that gets destroyed, and if my commander's on the battlefield, I can sacrifice a shrine token to bring back a shrine out of my graveyard and put it on the battlefield. When it enters the battlefield, I get the shrine token right back. So, yeah, that is definitely why I like that card. Down to the last 3 creatures that are in this deck. And this one is Joiner Adept. That is also not the art that I have. Will it let me click that one? Yep, that's the art that I have. Joiner Adept costs 1 and a green, is a 2/1 elf druid. States that lands you control have tap them and add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So this most definitely helps with your mana fixing because it'll make your lands tap for whatever. Have your mess around and have an Evolving Wilds on the board and go ahead and tap it for green because you can. Yeah, so that's why that's in there, pretty cut and dry. Perfect for a 5 color deck. Make sure I tap for any color. Yay, yay. Second to last creature actually has 2 sides. So you know what? I'll do that one last because then it'll just go right into it's gonna go right into the next category anyway, which is enchantments. But the second to last creature I have in this deck is Avacyn, Angel of Hope. Costs 5 and 3 white. It's a pretty steep cost, but this is Avacyn we're talking about. Most people know what Avacyn is all about. It's an 8/8 legendary creature angel, has flying, vigilance, and indestructible. Other permanents I control have indestructible. This comes on the board. My board can't be touched outside of getting exiled, which nothing I can do about that if she's on the board, because even she can get exiled herself. It's happened multiple times. Part of the game, it happens, but it's Avacyn. If you don't know what Avacyn's about, and even if you're looking at this card like, that's not too bad. No, it's actually way worse than you think when you're playing against it and it's on the board. You can't blow up any of their shit. You can't win any fights or anything like that. Her being an 8/8 with vigilance on her own, you want to talk about a hell of an attacker and a hell of a blocker. Yeah, Avacyn's pretty fucked up. And the last creature that I have in here is... Oh, and it brought up both sides. That's fucking awesome. is Asika, God of the Tree. This side of her, it's a two-sided card. You can cast it for either side. I like both sides. It just depends on the board state and depends on what's going on. Early game, I'd probably do the Asika side. Mid to late game, if it lasts that long, I would do the Prismatic Bridge side, but we'll get to that. Asika costs 1 and 2 green. Is a 1/4 legendary creature. God has Vigilance. Has a tap ability of add 1 mana of any color. And also, other legendary creatures I control have Vigilance and can tap add 1 mana of any color. And as you've seen, there are plenty of legendary creatures in this deck. So if I need them to help me tap for mana, this will let me do that. But, like I said, mid to late game, I'll cast it for its Prismatic Bridge side, which is awesome. Because, say if somehow they kill the god, you can resurrect the enchantment, bring the enchantment side back from your graveyard to your, but it's going back to your hand. So once it's in your hand, you can cast it for either side. But in any event, the Prismatic Bridge costs 1 of each color, is a legendary enchantment. States that at the beginning of your upkeep, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature or planeswalker card. Put that card onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. I feel like, again, that's pretty cut and dry. It's in there so I can get free creatures. There's only one Plainswalker in this deck, but if I happen to flip them, then hey, I flipped them then. But plenty of creatures in this deck, all of them generally useful. Especially if this just happens to help me flip up a shrine. That's even better. But on that note, that is the creatures. So now I can move on to the enchantments. And I'm actually going to go ahead and get all the shrines out of the way first, and then we'll go into the rest. And the first shrine that is on my stack here is... oh, I missed it. It's Sanctum of All. This card is fucking awesome. Costs 1 of each color. Is a legendary enchantment shrine. States that at the beginning of my upkeep, I may search my library and or graveyard for a shrine card. Put it onto the battlefield. If you search your library this way, shuffle it, of course. Everything works that way. Also states, though, that if an ability of another shrine you control triggers while you control 6 or more shrines, which is definitely going to happen, that ability triggers an additional time. That is fucking amazing, let me tell you. Especially, like I said, with the shrines that I'm about to get into right now after this, that have all the triggered abilities. This will help them trigger twice. And yeah. And not to mention, you get to get this during your upkeep. So if you go in your library and search for one of the shrines that trigger during your pre-combat main phase, and you happen to control 6 or more shrines, it's going to trigger an additional time off top as soon as you search for it and put it on the battlefield. You go to your draw step, then you go to your first main phase, and then that shrine triggers, and you'll get to trigger it an additional time. And yeah. Alright. And now, time to get into... oh, I spelled that wrong, I'm sorry. They weren't in any particular order, but you know what, we may as well just go from the top down, because I do own all 5 of them. All 5 of these Honden shrines from back in the day, back in the Kamigawa days. Champions. But the first one is Honden. I don't know why I always say Honden. Honden of Seeing Winds costs 4 and a blue. Is a legendary enchantment shrine. States that at the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card for each shrine you control. Needless to say, this thing can go off and have your hand pretty damn full, pretty damn fast. If you can't find your pieces messing around having this thing on the battlefield, you weren't meant to. Let me tell you, because yeah, your hand will fill up very, very fast messing with this card. But okay, let's go into the next one. which, like I said, we're just going to end up covering them all, so I may as well just go straight down the line. And the next one, which is actually probably if it's not my favorite, it's one of my favorites. And it's Honden of Infinite Rage. Costs 2 and a red. It is a legendary enchantment shrine. States that at the beginning of your upkeep, the Infinite Rage deals damage to any target equal to the number of shrines you control. Now, this I have killed players with. Definitely. Multiple times. Because with all the other shrines on the board, and the fact that your commander is creating more shrines for you to just throw on the stack of this ability, you will murder somebody really fast. And Lord forbid you have the Sanctum of All on the board, and or not Lord forbid, Lord willing that you have the Sanctum of All on the board, you will mess around and trigger this twice. You might kill 2 people, depending on how many shrines you got on the board, depending on the board state, depending on their life total. Yeah, so this is definitely up there for one of my favorites out of all the shrines. And the next one, since like I said, we're just going straight down the line. People really hate this one, and I can't even blame them. If I was on the other end of this, I'd hate it too. Honden of Night's Reach. Excuse me. Costs 3 and black. Is a legendary enchantment shrine. At the beginning of your upkeep, target opponent discards a card for each shrine you control. More often than not, I'm just looking at an opponent at my upkeep like, you discard your hand. Because that's pretty much what's going to happen. Usually by the time I have this on the board, there's 5, 6, if not way more shrines than that at this point. And it's basically looking at somebody saying discard your hand. Unless you're playing against somebody else who's playing in a draw card theme that has a lot of cards in their hand, and maybe they have no maximum hand size, which does happen, don't get me wrong. This is still going to make you this is still going to make you drop a shitload of cards. It'll have you in your head deciding when I'm looking at you like, hey, such and such, with all those cards in your hand, you got to discard at least 10 of them or something like that. And they're like, oh shit, no maximum hand size gets around that. So then there is Honden of Cleansing Fire. This card will definitely keep you alive unless you're getting hit with commander damage, and there's really nothing you can say about that. But Honden of Cleansing Fire costs 3 and a white. Is a legendary enchantment shrine. At the beginning of your upkeep, you gain 2 life for each shrine you control. And I've had my life into the hundreds fucking with this card multiple times. Like I said, commander damage, you really can't do anything about that. Infect, as lame as Infect is, can't really do anything about that either. But as far as just, hitting each other for general shade and taking each other's life totals down, you're not gonna get me if I have that on the board. Well, I can't say that, though. I guess it would depend on how big the creature was. And then the final old school shrine here is Honden of Life's Web. Costs 4 and a green. Is a legendary enchantment shrine. It states that at the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token for each shrine you control. Another one that's making the colorless spirits, and you'll end up with a ton of these things on the board. And like I said, the tokens and whatnot, there's always so many of them that they do the attacking and whatnot for me, or the chump blocking when I need it. So, Alright, now, the next 5 cards are going to be the shrines that came out, was it M21? That activate during your pre-combat main phase, or trigger during your pre-combat main phase. That wording is very important. Oh, that's how we're going to do it. Alright, well, either in the event, the first one that's in my hand here is Sanctum of Fruitful Harvest. Costs 2 and a green, is a legendary enchantment shrine. States at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, add X mana of any one color, where X is the number of shrines you control. Just, another way. Well, first of all, it's a shrine, so it's going in this deck. and also another way for you to add a shit ton of mana. But obviously, you have to use the mana before you move into combat or whatnot, or you'll lose it. But that's really not that hard of a thing to do, especially for the fact that the majority of the time that every time I'm casting an enchantment, I'm drawing a card or two sometimes. So, excuse me. So the mana never goes to waste, is basically what I'm getting at. And the next one, kind of underwhelming, but cheap, and it is a shrine still. So, Sanctum of Tranquil Light costs 1 white. Is a legendary enchantment shrine. States that, or has an activated ability. You can pay 5 and a white, tap target creature. But this ability costs 1 less to activate for each shrine you control. So I usually will have enough shrines on the board that this would only cost 1 white, but I don't think I've ever used this ability. Not saying that I would never use it. Say if something was going on, somebody let me know that they were going into combat, and I know they have something stupid on the board that I don't want them to swing at me with, as long as it's not protected by protection, shroud, or hexproof, or anything of that nature. I can be like, well, when you move into combat, I'll pay this 1 white, and you can just go ahead and tap that. That way you don't attack me with it. Granted, I don't think that's ever came up, but that's not to say that it would never come up. You know, that's my thing about this game, is a lot of things are always situational. And just because the situation has never arisen does not mean that it will never arise. You know what I mean? And the next one I have here is Sanctum of Shattered Heights. Another one that I really like. 2 in a red, legendary enchantment shrine. You can pay 1 and discard a land card, which definitely is not that hard in this deck. But you can discard a land card or shrine card. Sanctum of Shattered Heights deals X damage to target creature or Plainswalker, or X is the number of shrines you control. And I know for a fact I've used this for both of those abilities. A little annoying creature on the board doing some stupid shit, or a random annoying Plainswalker. Don't get me wrong, not all Plainswalkers are, worth going after, but the ones that are, this will definitely get rid of them. So yeah, like that one too for sure. And let's see the next one, second to last of the Sanctums here. And it is the Sanctum of Calm Waters. Costs 3 and a blues, legendary enchantment shrine. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, you may draw X cards where X is the number of shrines you control. If you do, discard a card. Like I said, more often than not, I have a ton of shrines on the board. So if I do choose to draw the cards, I will draw shit on. Okay, I have to discard one. Guess what? I'm more than likely going to discard a land, because I'll have a bunch of those on the board anyway. And depending on how many cards I'm drawing, I'll have more lands in my hand regardless. So nothing to discard some useless land, or say a land that would have entered the battlefield tapped or something like that. Nah, no thank you. I'll just go ahead and discard that and end up with a shitload of cards in my hand. And then there's the last of the Sanctum Shrines. And that is Sanctum of Stone Fang. Costs 1 and a black, legendary enchantment shrine. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, each opponent, I love that wording, each opponent loses X life and you gain X life, where X is the number of shrines you control. This has most definitely killed people, or drained the absolute shit out of them. That's for damn sure. No homo, I think. But yeah, love this one for sure. This thing's no homo. See? I can't fucking help it. I'm too immature sometimes. Not all the time. But yeah, I've seen this thing suck the life out of some of my friends. There's no other way to really word that. But yeah, I love this card. A lot of other people don't. That's not really my problem. I think it's hilarious. Alright, on to the rest of these just straight up enchantments that I have in this deck. spell all that? But is Enchantress's Presence. Costs 2 and a green. It's an enchantment. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, draw a card. Pretty cut and dry. Don't feel like that really needs any explaining. Oh, and then there's this one. I've gotten this one to go off pretty thoroughly too. And it is Sigil of the Empty Throne. Costs 3 and 2 white enchantment. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying. And needless to say, as I'm sure you've noticed, I'm casting enchantments all over the place, whether it's just straight up enchantments or enchantment creatures. So yeah, this sigil can definitely go off. Angels all over the place. Angels, 2/2 cats, and colorless spirits everywhere. And then the next one. Martyr's Bond costs 4 and 2 white. Excuse me. Enchantment. Whenever Martyr's Bond or another non-land permanent you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices a permanent that shares a card type with it. And outside of just liking that ability in general, you destroy my shit, I make you sacrifice your shit. It goes very nicely with my enchantment shrine tokens. If I get rid of one of those, then don't get me wrong, you can only choose one or the other type, either the creature side or the enchantment side. But your opponent's gonna have to sacrifice one or the other. If they don't have any enchantment, they only have creatures, you're still gonna have to sacrifice a creature. Or say if you have both, you're gonna have to pick one because it was both types. So you're gonna have to pick one to sacrifice. That's completely up to you. I don't care either way. I've actually only gotten this on the board like once or twice. You know how Commander is, it's a singleton format. You can mess around and play a deck 10 times and sometimes not see a card. But I like it and it's not going anywhere. Next, I feel like these next two is a set of cards that anybody that knows anything about, enchantments and protecting them, you had to have thought that this might be in there in its privileged position. Costs 2 and 3 Celestia hybrids, which means you can pay white or green on each of those. Enchantment, other permanents you control have hexproof. Oh, this has different arts? Oh, nice. Okay. But, yeah. When this is on the board, say if somebody wants to do some kind of spot removal or anything like that, they're not going to be able to do it until they get rid of privileged position first. Unless it's a board wipe, but that's not spot removal. That's a board wipe. There's nothing you can say about that anyway. So yeah. But that, and that's another one, seeing as that I have this, I'm sure you guys, or some of you anyway, I can't say all of you, assume that I might have in this deck, and I do, and it goes right along with privileged position. And then Sterling Grove costs 1 and a green. It's an enchantment. Other enchantments you control have shrouds. So, needless to say, if you have this and privileged position on the board, privileged position gives this hexproof, and this gives privileged position shroud. So spot removal is not happening at all. Yeah, you can just completely forget about that. But has you can pay 1, sacrifice Sterling Grove, search your library for an enchantment card, reveal it, and put it on top. Reveal it, then shuffle, put that card on top of your library. Which again has come in handy, and I've cycled this out multiple times. Sack it, go get an enchantment, put it on top of my library, draw said card, get this out of my graveyard, put it back on the battlefield, do it all over again. I've done it multiple times. I end up with damn near all my shrines, or whatever I need at the time. A lot of the times I can just go get Sanctum of All, and Sanctum of All can go get my shrines anyway. So, Yeah. Sterling Grove, people. Awesome card. Always has been. Next I have... Oh, yep, there you are. Sphere of Safety costs 4 and a white enchantment, of course. Creatures can't attack you or a Plainswalker you control unless their controller pays X for each of those creatures, where X is the number of enchantments you control. And that's just a lot of times I am definitely gonna have more enchantment than you have mana. So you more than likely would be better off trying to get into your deck to find a way to get rid of this. Because attacking me is just not gonna happen. Yeah. Way too many enchantments on the board between my shrines, the normal enchantments, the enchantment tokens. Yeah, I'm gonna end up with more enchantments than you have mana. That's pretty much almost a guarantee. So yeah, good luck with that. And here's an enchantment that goes right along with that. Prison. Costs 2 and a white. It's an enchantment, of course. Creatures can't attack you unless their controller pays 2 for each. Pays 2 for each creature they control that's attacking you. So just another stacks piece that helps people not attack me, or not attack me as hardcore as they'd like to. And needless to say, if I have this and the sphere on the board, you're more than likely not going to attack me at all. You better have a very mana-heavy deck. Excuse me. Yeah, if you think you're going to come at me, if I have both of those on the board, it's going to cost you a not to attack me. Like I said, you'd be better off trying to find something to get rid of these than try to fight me. But anyway, second to last enchantment. Always like this card. That's not the version I have, but that does look pretty cool. But Abundance costs 2 and a green enchantment. If you would draw a card, you may instead choose land or non-land, or you cannot do any of that. You can just draw the card. But if you choose the land or non-land, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a card of the chosen kind. Put that card in your hand. Put all other cards on the bottom. You know, this is good in both ways. If you can happen to get this out, but say that all that 4 mana is all you had, and nobody destroys this, but you're looking in your hand, you got stuff that costs 5, you got stuff that costs, more than that. You can choose land, and it'll help you get your land drops every single turn. Or if you feel like you're already fixed on land, or you feel like, you're in a position where this can you pretty much do the game for you. You can choose non-land and just get more enchantments, more creatures, more of anything, it just depends. Like I said, this game is situational, so it just depends on what's going on at the time. But, yep, always like that card. And the last card I have in here, or not the last card I have in the last enchantment that I have in this deck, is Paradox Haze. Costs 2 and a... Oh, I guess I do have an aura. 1 aura in this whole deck. Costs 2 and a blue. It's an enchantment aura. Enchant player. That would be me. At the beginning of enchanted player's first upkeep each turn, that player gets an additional upkeep. That player gets an additional upkeep step after the step. So it gives you 2 upkeeps. So definitely goes along the lines of anything that triggers at your upkeep, such as my Honden Shrines. They'll trigger twice. And if I have the snake creature on the board and use this ability, I can use that ability 3 times. Whew! That can cause some shit, let me tell you. There's another one of those things that goes with the infinite raise. Depending on the board state, and I get this on the board, I can use that twice. I can mess around and kill somebody. I can mess around and kill 2 people, depending on what's going on. Now, an honorable mention, I don't own this, but I hopefully one day will. And if I ever get it, I am going to put it in this deck, and it's Collective Restraint. 3, and it's on my wish list. It costs 3 and a blue as an enchantment. Creatures can't attack you unless their controller pays X for each creature attacking you, where X is the number of basic land types amongst lands you control. So with this on the board in this deck, the most I can make you pay for one creature is 5, which is still fucking amazing. And in conjunction with the other ones that make you pay, or whatever the case may be, for the enchantments I have, or just paying 2 to attack me for each one, yeah, you're just not going to attack me. It's just going to be pretty much impossible to have enough mana to attack me if I have these cards on the boards in conjunction with each other. But that's an if. That's an if. I have to actually have them on the board. Sometimes you don't. But yeah, that's an honorable mention because that's a card that I want, but at the moment I don't own. But one day it will be mine. So let's go. I hit the cap again somehow. Let's go into the sorceries. Which there aren't a lot. There's enough, but not a lot. And excuse me. The first one we're going to talk about is Dance of the Manse. Costs white, blue, and X, so you can put as much into it as you need to. States that you can return up to X target artifact and or non-aura enchantment cards, each with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. That's awesome in and of itself, but if X is 6 or more, those permanents are 4/4 creatures in addition to their other types. And what makes that awesome is, say if I do lose my 1 or 2 of my enchantment creatures and whatnot, and I bring them back with this, if I can pay them the 6 to it, because none of them are 4/4s, but they will be now, so they'll come back bigger than they were, giggity, and more effective. So yeah, Dance of the Manse, people. Excuse me. And next I have here. Excuse me. I have Retrieve. Retrieve is a sorcery that costs 2 and a green. Return up to 1 target creature card and up to 1 target non-creature permanent card from your graveyard to your hand, then exile it. Yeah, they said it's perfect. You can go get any of my creatures or one of my enchantment creatures, and this can go get one of my enchantments back, or artifacts, or or shit, even Plainswalker. If somebody kills my Plainswalker and I want that shit back, I can go get that shit back. So yeah, this here for the versatility, it can cover a couple of different spectrums and mess around and get me 2 cards back. Sucks that I have to exile it afterwards, but it is what it is. But sometimes you gotta have a backup plan to the backup plan, and that's why I like this card. Excuse me. Reviving Melody. Costs 2 and a green, sorcery of course. Choose 1 or both. Return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand, and or return target enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand. Needless to say, quite a few of the creatures in here are enchantment creatures, so I can mess around and go get 2 enchantment creatures out of my graveyard, or just a normal creature or a normal enchantment. It just depends. Like I said, I like cards with versatility like that. It just depends on what's going on at the time and what you feel you may need back. You may only need 1 of them back to help you, do whatever you gotta do. But both options are there if you so need them. Excuse me. Man, I cannot wait to get completely over this cold. But the next one is Resurgent Belief. Is a sorcery with no mana cost. It does have a suspend 2 for 1 and a white. which means rather than cast this card from your hand, you can pay 1 and a white and exile it with 2 time counters on it at the beginning of your upkeep. Remove a time counter from it. When the last time counter is removed, you get to cast it without paying its mana cost. For anybody who didn't know what suspend was, if it happened to be a creature and you suspended it and you got the suspend off, it would come out with haste. But this isn't a creature, so. But anyway, once it comes out of suspension, you can return all enchantment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. Pretty cut and dry. The only thing that you'd really have to worry about with this is if it was suspended, and once the last suspend counter or the last time counter was removed and you go to cast it, somebody can still counter it. That's pretty much the only thing you'd have to worry about. If that happens, that sucks. It is what it is. But if you can get it off, giggity, then get it off. Next. Oh, booyah. I have Brilliant Restoration. Costs 3 and 4 white. I know it's pretty hefty on the whites. No races, but I like it nonetheless. Sorcery, return all artifacts and enchantment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. I'm sure you guys have probably already noticed that the majority of the cards in this deck are white and green anyway. So are the majority of the lands. Not all of them, obviously, but the majority of them are. Excuse me. But with the multiple ways that I have in this deck to make my lands tap for any color, and there are more that we actually haven't even covered yet, but we will. It makes it a lot more tangible that I can pay that for the 4 white. So, yeah, that doesn't really worry me at all. But, yep, another way to recur all of my enchantments and artifacts. Next, 4th to last sorcery, Farseek. Pretty cut and dry. A lot of people know this card. 1 and a green. Search your library for a plains, island, swamp, or mountain, and put it on the battlefield tab. Just a helpful ramp card, just to help you get another land in color fix. Obviously, if that's in here, Rampant Growth is in here, because the only thing that makes Rampant Growth beat Farseek is the fact that you can also still get a forest. Everybody knows Rampant Growth. 1 in a green, search your library for a basic land card, put that card onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. And let me stand corrected, maybe everybody doesn't know. You can't expect everybody to know everything that you know. It is a pretty basic card, but that's not to say that everybody knows it, because everybody plays differently. Some people are brand new to this game and maybe have never seen Rampant Growth before. That shit happens. Everybody was new at this game at some point, including myself and including anybody who watches this video. Second to last, and I'll actually cover them both at the same time because it's Cultivate and it is. And I'm only covering them both at the exact same time because they literally do the exact same thing. And the other one is Kadamas Reach. The only thing that makes Kadamas Reach different in any way is the fact that it's an arcane spell, but that, unless you're playing with cards from Kamigawa, with that really doesn't matter. But in any event, they both cost 2 and a green, and they both let you search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, reveal those cards, put 1 in your hand, put 1 on the battlefield tapped, and the other in your hand. They both literally do the exact same thing. But backup plan to the backup plan, so they both come in handy. Alright, next I'm going to move on to the instance, which I didn't realize until I went to go do this deck that there are only 3. But that's fine. That fact has never really given me any kind of problems playing this deck. And the first one is Argivian Find. Costs 1 white, instant of course, return target artifact or enchantment cards from your graveyard to your hand. This is one of those cards like I'll just hold on to it. until somebody does some cattywampus bullshit on one of their turns and destroys, something of mine. And, at the end of their turn, or at the end of whoever's opponent's turn, before it's my turn, I'll mess around and cast this and put it right back in my hand. That way, on my turn, I can have all my mana untapped and put it back on the battlefield if need be. But, yeah. And the next one is... Oh, there you go. Season of Renewal. Another versatile card, costs 2 and a green, actually just like the other ones, but they're sorceries, so I'd have to put this on top. Giggity. Choose one or both, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand, or return target enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand. This shits on those other green ones that I have because they're sorceries. This is an instant, it can do literally the exact same thing. So yeah, this had to come along for the ride. And the last, excuse me, I'm sorry guys. The last instant I have in this deck is another ramp card, and it's Harrow. You pay 2 and a green as an additional cost. To cast Harrow, you have to sacrifice a land. No biggie, because you get to search a library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them on the battlefield, then shuffle. Not tapped, just flat out put them on the battlefield. So you put them on the battlefield and you have, something that costs 2, which does happen sometimes. You can go get the basic lands that you need to cast that card and just go ahead and get that out of the way. Alright. And now we will move on to the artifacts that I have, which, granted, there are not a lot. Let's see, I'm counting 7, but they're all pretty handy. I'm sure we all know what the first one is. This is the commander deck, so... Tis Soul Ring. Pretty much a commander staple. There aren't very many people who don't know what it is, but in any event, I'm sure there are some people who don't. So, Soul Ring is a 1-drop artifact that allows you to tap for 2 colorless mana. Needless to say, pretty cut and dry. Card's awesome. I know a lot of people feel me on this. You end up with a first turn Soul Ring, you're more than likely going to take off way faster than your opponents, but hey, it's part of the game. If they can't get rid of it, then I really don't know what to tell them. And trust me, I've been on both sides of that. It happens. Excuse me. And one of the next ones, because I'm sure you guys have been wondering if I've had anything in here that gives me no maximum hand size, seeing as that I have a ton of ways to draw cards, but it is Thought Vessel. It's a 2-drop artifact. I have no maximum hand size, but it can also tap for a colorless. So it's very helpful in both ways. And I've had games where I land Soul Ring, tap the Soul Ring, Thought Vessel, and I'm like, I'm 4 mana up on the first turn with no maximum hand size. Who the fuck is gonna argue with that? It's like that sometimes. And let's see, the next one. Another one I felt. Oh, did I spell that right? This had to come. And it's Arcane Signet. Costs 2. Artifact, of course. You can tap it and add 1 color of any color in your commander's identity. And I know my commander is green, but he has the Wooburg activated ability in his text. So that puts all 5 colors in his identity. So basically, pay 2 for this artifact, and I can tap for any color that I want. Booyah. I feel like any deck that has 3 or more colors should have an Arcane Signet. That's just a personal opinion. I'm sure a lot of people look at it differently. 2 colors, I don't really see it being necessary. I feel like you can take that spot out for something else, like maybe a dual color Signet. I'd rather have in a 2-color deck than this, but that's just me. And like I said, that's one of the things I like about this game is everybody plays it differently, and there's nothing wrong with that. And the next card I have is Fellwar Stone. It is a 2-drop artifact, and it has a tap ability that lets you add 1 mana of any color that a land an opponent controls could produce. So whatever lands your opponents are using, this can tap for one of those. And depending on what's going on, because I've had this happen before where somebody else was also using a 5-color deck, and say they had a command tower on the board, which taps for any coloring commands I did, that makes this tap for any one of the 5 colors. So, yeah, that's another one I feel 3 or more colors, yeah, this should, I guess, no, 3 or more colors, yeah, I'd probably throw this in the deck too. I mean, don't get me wrong, Lord forbid, say if you were playing Mardu deck with this in it, which is red, white, and black, and somebody was playing a Dimir deck, which is, not Dimir, that's not a good, choice, that's Mardu, so, what's left in that? Simic, I'm tripping, I'm sorry. Say if somebody's playing a Simic deck, which is blue and green, this would be useless, but how often would that ever happen? Not to say that it would never happen, but how often would it really happen? So, hopefully, if worst case scenario, it can tap for at least one of the colors that you need. But in any event, another card that I have in here is Strionic Resonator. It's a 2-drop artifact. Has an activated ability that you can pay 2, tap it, copy target triggered ability you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. This goes right along with the shrines. And this really goes really good with Sanctum of All, because as your upkeep, it triggers that you can go in your library and or graveyard and search for a shrine. If you have this on the board, copy that. You can go get 2 shrines and put them on the battlefield. That's fucking nasty. Needless to say, it's Strionic Resonator. The card is awesome. Second to last, I know all the library, I own a library of Ling, and they all have the old wording on it and whatnot, so I'll read the errata text. Basically, you have no maximum hand. Oh, it's a 1-drop artifact, I'm sorry. You have no maximum hand size. If an effect causes you to discard a card, discard it, but you may put it on top of your library instead of putting it in your graveyard. That's awesome. Granted, that rarely ever comes up. It's more in here for the fact that it's a 1-drop, you have no maximum hand size. Who's going to argue with that? And the last artifact that I have in this deck, another card that I feel that if your deck is 3 or more colors, you should have a Chromatic Lantern. Straight up. Personal opinion only, don't get me wrong. But to me, if I have a deck that's 3 or more colors, Chromatic Lantern is going in it. It's a 3-drop artifact that states that lands you control tap for any color you want. And the Chromatic Lantern itself can tap for any color you want. Yeah, card is awesome in decks with, like I said, to me, that's a personal opinion of mine. 3 or more colors, this is going in the deck. 2 colors, that to me is completely unnecessary. And if I ever saw somebody put this in a monocolored deck, I would need to know a thorough reason why. But again, everybody plays differently, so intrigue me, if anything. Nothing wrong with that. Wouldn't be the first person. And now I am going to go into the non-basic lands that I have in this deck, and then we will conclude this video. Hope you guys are still with me. And the first one that's on top of my stack here is Shipwreck Marsh. It enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more other lands. And it can tap for either or color of Dimir, blue or black. So, I have, you know what? I have a version of this, or this version of this card, but it is in a zombie deck that I have with Will Health the Rock Cleaver. That video is also up on my channel if you guys choose to check that out. But alright. The next one excuse me, I'm sorry, is Haunted Ridge, and that is the version that I have. Enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more other lands. You're going to see that a lot, and actually quite a few of the first couple cards that I have here. And can tap for either or color of Rakdos, black or red. So, yeah. And then next, since we're in the theme of having cards that pretty much come in tapped unless you control 2 or more other lands, I have Dream Root Cascade. Same thing, it's the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more other lands. Can tap for either or color of Simic, green and blue. Oh, that's pretty cool. So yeah. I do not own all 10 of these color combinations, but if I ever do get a hold of them, they will all go in this deck. Oh, that is not the right card. Sorry about that. There we go, it's this one. Shattered Sanctum. I don't even know what that Shattered Dream card was. Anyway, Shattered Sanctum. Enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more other lands. Can tap for either or color of Orzhov, that is white or black. Oh, that's pretty cool. And then I have Overgrown Farmland. Enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more other lands. Can tap for either or color of Celestia, green or white. So as you can see, yeah, these lands help me mana fix all day. And I also have Deathcap Glade. It's French. I don't know, I'm talking shit. Enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more other lands. Can tap for either or color of Golgari, green or black. So yeah. And also have Sundown Pass. Enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more other lands. Can tap for either or color of Boros, which is red or white. Yeah. Alright, I think I'm out of those types of lands. And on to... Oh, not even ready. Look at me slipping. Yep, there you are. And like I've said before in my other videos, there's a Temple of the False God in pretty much every commander deck that I have. Because this card's awesome. Temple of the False God. Taps for 2 colorless. Activate only if you control 5 or more lands. It's a commander game. That's gonna happen. And to not only for the fact that it taps for 2 colorless, it can help with your commander tags. Because yeah, it's adding 2 colors. So, and then next is another one that I will cover both of them at the same time because they literally do the exact same thing, and that is Evolving Wilds. And I'm sure you guys can guess the other one because most people know these cards, and it is Terramorphic Expanse, because this and Evolving Wilds literally do the exact same thing word for word. Sacrifice either of them, and you can search your library for a basic land card, put it on the battlefield tapped. Great early game cards, so it can help you get your colors out there that you can look at. You're looking in your hand, obviously you know what colors you're going to need if you don't already have them. These can help you get them. Late game, not so much. I mean, don't get me wrong, if you put these on the board with, say, that Joiner Adept or the Chromatic Lantern, you can still tap these for mana. Just on some funny shit, and I think that shit's hilarious. But as far as the tapping and sacking for a basic land, unless you really need to shuffle late game, not really useful late game, but early game, awesome. Get you the colors that you need. Next, another one. Command Tower. Land, obviously. Add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. Pretty much every commander. I can't say every, but I would assume that generally most commander decks that are 2 or more colors has a damn command tower in it. 3 or more, you damn sure better have one. But this unlike Arcane Signet or anything like that, this I can still see in 2 color decks. It's a land drop and can tap for either color that you want. Arcane Signet, that actually has a mana cost, so in a 2 color deck, I don't think that's necessary. You can use that spot for something else. Like I said, that's just a personal opinion of mine. Also, something that goes good with those, the Evolving Wild and Terramorphic Expanse is this card. The World Tree. Awesome card. Enters the battlefield tapped, but it can tap for green, but as long as you control 6 or more lands you control can tap for any color that you want. Amazing. Love this card. Yeah, for mana fixing, it'll definitely get you there for sure. But has a secondary ability. You can pay double Wooburg, and you can sacrifice the World Tree. Search your library for any number of God cards, put them onto the battlefield, and shuffle your library. That's not in here for that, because there are no God cards in this deck. I'm sure I could fit some God cards in this deck, but I haven't. I built it on what I had and what I had, going on at the time, and I like how it came out. It's in here mainly for that second ability where you can make your lands tap for any color. Okay, 4 lands left. And one of them is Exotic Orchard. Land, obviously. Can tap and add 1 mana of any color a land an opponent controls could produce. So it does the exact same thing as Fell Warstone, except in land form. And like I said, if you happen to be playing against somebody else that's playing a 5-color deck and they have like a command tower on the board or something like that, this can tap for all 5 colors. This, just like Fell Warstone, I'd say max 4 or 5 colors you should have this in the deck. But at the same time, you never know what your opponent's playing. If you just happen to sit down with 3 people who are all playing monocolored decks, this is only going to tap for at least 1 of each of those colors. And Lord forbid they're all playing the same color, it'll at least tap for that 1 color. But how often does that happen? But it's all good. And third to last I have here is Reliquary Tower. Another way that gives me no maximum hand size, and it can tap for colorless. The colorless is cool, but it's pretty much in here for the no maximum hand size. Because I end up, like I said, drawing a shitload of cards off of shrines entering, casting shrines. Some of the shrines themselves let me draw cards. One of the shrines makes me draw cards. I have no say-so in the matter. So, yeah, gotta have that stuff that gives you no maximum hand size. And the last 2 non-basic lands, I should say, are 2 cards that I can cover at the same time, because again, they literally do the exact same thing. And one is Transguild Promenade, and the other is Rupture Spire. They both literally do the exact same thing word for word. They enter the battlefield tapped. When they enter, you have to pay 1 or sacrifice it, but then they can tap for 1 mana of any color. They both literally do the exact same thing. Like I said, just like the Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanses, these are great to get out early game. Like if it's the 2nd or 3rd lane you play, maybe even 4th, depending on what you got going on in your hand. The these are awesome. Mid to late game, not so much. Mid to late game, these are kind of whatever. You end up discarding them or just holding on to them because you end up constantly getting lands that can enter that don't enter tapped. But early game, it'll definitely help you get your stuff fixed up and whatnot. So, and is that on? Let me make sure. Looking at, yeah, that is it. And obviously, like I said, there is a mix of basic lands in here, some of each color, mostly green and white, but there's some of each color mixed in here. And that is my Go-Shintai of Life's Origins deck. I hope you guys like it. Feel free to comment, let me know your different takes. I'm sure there are multiple people out there who have Go-Shintai decks, so if any of you are watching this and you have different ideas, or if you liked my ideas that maybe gave you an idea, it's like, oh man, that's a card I don't have. Wow, that would go perfect in this deck. Yeah, I'm completely fine with stuff like that too. I love suggestions. There's nothing wrong with that because everybody plays differently. That's one of the things I love about this game. But that's it for now. On to the next time when I have time. So until then, later you guys.